So welcome back I think so. Some of you, and maybe there will be some new people in the room also. This morning we discussed some of the trends that we see in sports participation, and this afternoon we're going to discuss what some of the providers are doing about it. The first speakers we have is Eames and Alex Burrows, and they work a lot for facilities and leisure departments, in looking at how they have created what we call a data hub for looking into what is actually going on in these facilities, and to the governing bodies and the facilities, how can they change the programs and adapt the programs. And I think especially for the people we know from Denmark who are used to run the facilities, I think this is going to be quite interesting. So I will leave the floor to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Henrik, for inviting us today to present at the conference. As Henrik mentioned, my name is Eames. I'm head of planning for Global, and 4Global is an international sports consultancy. We're based in London. We have offices throughout the world, and we work very closely with local authorities, we call them in England, but municipalities here would be the equivalent, and national governing bodies of sport, or the equivalent sports federations, across three main areas. And should I pick this up and use this? Three main areas to the business. We have a major events part of the company, which is involved in operational readiness and security since Sydney 2000 Olympics. We've been involved in every Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games since then, with regards to strategically advising on the operations and security. We also have a sports planning consultancy, which I head up, and that consultancy works with local municipalities, national governing bodies of sport, to develop, enhance and build new sport facilities throughout the United Kingdom. And we also deliver leisure strategies, so we're currently working with Sport Northern Ireland to deliver their new leisure strategy. Another part of the business is sport intelligence, and this is the part which we're going to talk about the most today. My colleague Alex Burrows, one of the directors at 4Global, heads up the sport intelligence part of the company. And we're starting to do some very exciting things in England, being able to create and provide to municipalities and federations daily participation data on how people are performing in their sport. So I don't steal any more of Alex's thunder. I'm going to hand over to him to talk through that in detail.
Yeah, there was a good anecdote I read in a newspaper about 4 months ago now, and what it said is the person that saved the most lives in the UK isn't the person that's come up with the latest surgery or new medicine, or someone who's teaching doctors how to do things. Simply someone that came up with a way of sharing effective information with doctors. So different doctors know what's happening, what's working best, how to save lives. It's just that network, creating a network of sharing information. And that's the principle we've taken to the Data Hub project. It's always been a data-rich but information-poor sector. Lots and lots of data in facilities, with affiliations of clubs, it's all around the sector, but no one's brought it together. More importantly, brought it together and put some data standards around it. Until we get consistency, it's very hard for people to interpret that information. The logos along the bottom, really important. We've worked with a kind of sector representative group within the UK. On the bottom left are the two largest leisure facility operators. They run facilities, 250 sites run by GLL, 100 run by Places for People. And we're retained by 8 of the largest national governing bodies and federations within the UK for the next 4 years to provide their data, insight and research, including the Swimming Federation and badminton. And then we've integrated with leisure management system providers, so with the IT companies that are in facilities at the moment, to allow the data to flow through into our central data hub. And it's a complete game changer in terms of how now people are planning and investing in sports and sport facilities. So going back to the very start, what was the issue and why are we doing what we're doing? Across the first 125 sites we worked with, which is only 7 different organisations that run those sites, there are over 20,000 different activity names being captured at site. The receptionist was putting in badminton Wednesdays, badminton Fridays, badminton spelled incorrectly. All that source information just meant nothing, not even to the organisation that was running those facilities. They had no idea what the utilisation of badminton was in their sports courts. Over 250 types of badminton recorded across those 125 sites. In terms of different fitness activities, so Zumba and boxercise, over 5,000 different activity names used. It's impossible to understand what's happening, not just in a facility, but across the sector. So we started out in November 2013. The initial partners were Badminton England, so one of the largest federations in the UK, Places for People, who had 100 facilities spread across the country, and XM Leisure, who are one of the largest leisure management system providers. So the guys who run the IT systems within those facilities. Basically, they're able to turn, it's almost like turning on the tap to allow the flow of data out into our system. What we needed to do straight away was establish we had all these tens of thousands of different activity names. Can we work with the government and work with the Federation to create a number of data standards? So as those activities come in every night, automatically they're aligned to programs and sport names. So we now have, at midnight every night we receive about 150,000 different activity names every single day, and we align that to about 220 program names and about 50 sport names. And on the Johnson table, similarly around different facility areas. So whether is it in a sports hall, is it in a studio, is it in a swimming pool? And that starts to create a single repository for sports data. And then around that we can put a number of different modules to allow different bodies within the UK to interpret that information. Whether it's benchmarking, reporting, target marketing, you need to be able to use that business intelligence in a certain way. Fundamentally, what it gives everyone is this sector visibility. How is participation changing? Not as of 6 months ago when we did our last research survey, but as of last night. What programs that we're investing our money in under different federations are working and which aren't. If I'm running a sport facility, should I be putting Zumba or boxercise in my studio at 7:30 to get more females aged 15 to 24 active? What is the solution? Well, the information's all here. If I'm changing my facility mix, so I want more studios, why am I doing that? Is that because people are spending more money in those locations? Again, I've got the information. Going back to the data standards, what's really important is that we can align those 150,000 different activities we receive each night with sport names and then program names. So for instance, on the program side, you'll see Smash Up Badminton. That's a program Badminton Federation are funded for to deliver, to introduce people into the sport. For the first time, they've got a view across the country of whether it's being successful or not, based on actual data, people participating. And also this then allows the federations and the facility operators to make sure that their data is matched with program and sport names. So the whole system flows through. So what is it, the way it looks, we've got the Data Hub Club, which is facility operators. So those leisure centres around the country and municipalities and local government. We've got the IT systems that are already in place. There's a little bit of a bit of software that sits on those IT systems that sends us an extract every night into a central data hub. So several tens of millions of lines of data each night come into our system. We have a data hub steering group, which is that those logos that we saw on the first screen with all the different governing bodies, all the largest facility operators. They meet quarterly to decide how this information is used and the information that's taken from site. Typically, from every site, we receive all the demographics, the postcode, the activity you're doing, the amount you're spending on site. So when you make that booking, you swipe your card. That's logged in a system that comes across to us. And then we've got this array of partners, and this is really important. This isn't a full global system. This is a sector-wide system. So, yeah, full global specialists in kind of being a data controller, making sure we take the source data and create intelligence out of it. But then there's better people that do marketing or do surveying or do business reporting. We can feed that information into their modules. So no longer are they just surveying half of their membership base because that's what they've done all the time to find out how to improve their facilities. They can now target surveys. They can target marketing campaigns because we know based on the data, if you haven't come back to play badminton within 3 weeks, 95% of the time you're not going to come back. So can we trigger a campaign at that point? But it's based on millions of lines of data, not just one individual. And fundamentally, what does it do? It enhances the understanding of customers, which drive programs and then facility design. It improves the relationship with governing bodies and those third parties that deliver programs within facilities. It allows benchmarking, real-time, up-to-date benchmarking of what's good and what's bad and what's working. And this idea of continuous improvement. If I can track it, if I'm putting a campaign out there, can I track whether it's working or not? You know, I wanted that person to come back to play badminton. Have they come back? If not, what's the next campaign that the sector are using to solve that problem? It's that visibility across the sector using data. Started in 2013. This year, got target to get to about 1,000 sites, and that covers 250 million visits to sport facilities. It's the only project like this in the UK, fundamentally shifting how people, like I said, plan and invest into sport. And it's just built around really simple partnerships, recognising who needs that information and how best to get it to them. Going back to the setup, we've got a steering group that meets quarterly that looks over the governance, that's with the federations, with the big operators. We've got partners who provide the modules to use that data once it's all been processed. And then we've got the Data Hub Club, which is the facilities and the municipalities who access the insight. So those are the guys in the steering group. And if you're a facility operator or a municipality that runs facilities, why give us your data? Or why give the Data Hub your data? In the first instance, it was to help improve the products and services being delivered by the federations. So they've got real-time insight of what's working. So if no one's coming to that swim lesson at 7 o'clock, we can get our development officer out there and we can look at the program you're running in that pool to make sure that pool is better used and you make more money. So otherwise it's inevitably going to close and no one's going to be participating. So that's really important. But then it opens this realm, this kind of wide variety of modules and insight and intelligence you can provide people. I spoke about being able to trigger surveys to find out why people aren't doing more, or trigger campaigns to get people back into activity or upsell them into different activities. We've got benchmarking. For example, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the activity barometer, it shows you your live performance within that facility compared to the sector for all your different programs. So someone comes to you and says, take on Zumba, it's the next big thing. You've got an independent check from 60 million visits, whether it is, and whether it would work with your demographic catchment, whether it would work with the type of members you have. You've got that independent check. Another really important project is the social return on investment module, which I'll come into a little bit. But because we've got the facilities data, we've got the participation data, we can start to create some really complex, well not complex, but detailed models around what return from that participation are councils and municipalities generating. That just highlights how the data comes from the site, comes into the data hub, and then feeds a number of specialist modules and brings together all these different partners that are trying to increase participation. What does it look like in reality? This is a dashboard that the ASA, the Swimming Federation, log into and use every day. Tells them their throughput as of last night, tells them month-by-month benchmarks, a number of KPIs around number of unique members. They've got filters where they can drill down into different demographics if they want to. They can go into separate programs to see what's working.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
May I speak to this?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And I think before this, in England, there's a survey called the Active People Survey, which is delivered by Sport England. It's been running now for almost 10 years, and it's run twice a year. And before something like the Data Hub, the federations were relying on the Active People Survey to give them a snapshot of participation. But the sample size is very small, but it's still the most robust survey before something like Data Hub came along. And what we're finding is swimming and badminton and squash and racquetball can now use the Data Hub data to actually challenge the funding they've been given by Sport England, when Sport England might say to them, your participation numbers have dropped. They can say, well actually, we know yesterday that our participation numbers are up, and these are the programs that are delivering, and these are facilities across the country where our programs are effective or not effective. So it provides really accurate live data. That's all I wanted to say.
As mentioned, lots of things you can do with that. This map shows, we've looked at a particular facility. This is a live online tool where you can see, top map shows your population, and we can show different types of deprivation, we can show population growth, filter it by different age groups and gender. And then the bottom map shows, as of last night, live conversion of the people using your facility compared to the baseline resident population. And then you can start to do market segmentation. You can do lots of things around marketing or around where we should what type of program should we put in place in our facility to attract the demographic that's maybe to the east of that facility? If we know the demographics, we can use the big data to work out what programs they should be doing or could be doing. What are the latest trends across the sector that we can put in place? Not just, yes, those are the programs, but how much are they likely to spend? How long are they likely to be a member for? Really important information if you're investing into a facility. And also, I think in the last session we mentioned Bondo, who are acquired by Under Armour. That's an example of an ongoing conversation at the moment about bringing their data in as another layer to this. Map My Fitness is one of their companies. And that, so you set a precedent of once you get to this kind of critical mass of partners and data, it makes sense to layer up that information. So yes, we've got facility data, but if we know what people are doing in parks, or what the latest activities are after work, we can start to feed that in, and it starts to inform the decisions of, again, federations and those running the facility. Just because you run a facility doesn't mean all your activities need to be in that facility, but you should know what the latest trends are. What does it mean? What's happening across the UK at the moment? Now, your typical surveying, which used to happen kind of on the left-hand side like that, where you touch a screen as you go out the centre, or you get sent an email as you're leaving, or an SMS. Now that's triggered because we know that you haven't come back, or we could be upselling to you. So it's triggered around the data, around the business intelligence. And the same with the marketing on the right-hand side. Being able to target a campaign to someone, maybe do an A/B test. So you send one campaign, you send another, and you track which one's the most effective. And you've got lots of operators doing that. So if you have the same problem as another operator, you know what's most effective for solving that problem across the sector. It's this live visibility and sharing of best practice. This isn't complete. This is a project we've got ongoing at the moment with Experian, who are the biggest data company in the UK, kind of socio and economic data, and Sheffield Hallam, who are a leading university. But we've got now a physical activity profile on 10 million people from the last 3 years. We can marry that up with 300 socio-economic indicators, and say you do regular activity, we can prove that you're 20% less likely to go to the doctors, or how much is the doctor's visit worth to within London or the North East. And if you make a big model out of that, an index table, you can start to allow the data to automatically flow through as it does at the moment, and prove to the municipality or prove to the operator how much social return they're generating for running different programs, having different types of people through their facility. A real shift in how facilities will be funded.
What's your opinion?
Yeah.
What this means then at a municipality level or local authority level is that the colleagues that traditionally work in sport in that council can now have a conversation with their public health colleagues around actually the impact of sport and how much it could save on the public health budget. Whereas before, it was tangibly quite difficult to prove those benefits.
So what does it offer governments, governing bodies? What's the opportunity here? First of all, around data control. Yes, 4Global do the kind of data control and I suppose overall for the project. But the ASA, the Swimming Federation, are now data controller for how they share that intelligence with the sector. Now, it's up to them to go out to facilities and say, can we come in and support you? We can change how you program your pool and make you this amount of extra money, or get a number of extra people through the facility. Investment. Using this data, rather than a small sample survey that the government's relied on, using this big data to do better facility planning modelling, understanding supply and demand trends, using population projections, market segmentation. With all this data, that type of demographic who's done this type of activity, we know they'd actually like to do this activity when they drop out. So we've got the data to support that. Monitoring, participation, and making sure that best practice feeds back in, and that different federations know what's working well. And then tracking investment and the economic and social return from that. So next steps, we're here to meet governments, governing bodies who are interested in kind of going down this route. It's all about partnerships. Everyone we work with, the typical relationships kind of 4 or 5 years and ongoing. So we've talked about the sport intelligence and the data hub, but that starts to feed the sports planning consultancy. The whole idea around facility planning and making sure you get the right facility in the right place to meet local need. And the major event side, they're working across the world. So if you get that and you're doing event strategies on a national scale, it all starts to tie in, particularly if you get the data right and you get the data standards and can drive intelligence from that. So that's us. So yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you.
Yes, if I hadn't had known this, I wouldn't have invited you, because I just found out that it's not just the governing bodies that are challenged, it's also the Institutes for Sports Studies. So, yeah, very interesting. Next speaker is Pøhl, who is head of development of the National, it's so tough to say that, National Olympic Committee and Sports Confederation of Denmark. We just call it IF.
Yes, we do.
And you're going to talk about the challenges we have talked about this morning and now, and how you are going to address them.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, the subject for this presentation is delivering on sports participation. But before I start my presentation, it's very important for me to stress that actually I'm not only here on behalf of DIF, I'm also here on behalf of DGI, the other big sports association in Denmark. And those of you who knows a little about how we organize sports in Denmark will probably know that it's new. It's very new. Had you asked me for just 7-8 years ago if I would believe that we would be able to work this close, I would have said, well, I don't know. But here we are. We are together on this, and it's working out well. But let me tell you a little bit about how we handle this great challenge. We have developed a vision together. This vision says that in 2025 we want 50% of the population to be physical active in a sports club, and we want 75% of them to be just physical active, no matter where they are active. If we look at the forecast for the population, it means that we need to make 325,000 Danes active in a sports club in less than 10 years. And we need to inspire and motivate 600,000 more Danes to be physical active. Yes, it's sort of a challenge. But this vision is new in several ways. It is new because we work together. It is new because it's the first time that the sports organizations in Denmark announces such an ambitious vision. It's also new because it's the first time that we actually take responsibility for those who will be active outside of our clubs. It's a huge task we're facing, and we have to do it in a different way than we normally does. Normally, if you look here, you can see that we are pretty well doing when it comes to kids and young people. 9 out of 10 10-year-olds are a membership of a sports club. But if you look just a bit up, you can see when they turn like 15 years, as we've also heard earlier today, they stop being member of a sports club and they sort of also stop being physically active. So if we look for the potential, it's evident for everyone that we can't look at the target groups where we're normally very good, at the kids and kind of the young people. We have to look at the elderly and the adults. And some might say they be the same. We won't discuss this today, I think. If we look at the experiences so far, where has the growth been in participation in Denmark? We saw some numbers earlier today, but it's clear that the growth has shifted. It's no longer in kids and young people we find the growth, it's in adults and elderly. We can also see that the growth has shifted from team activities at fixed times to on your own or in small group activities at flexible times. We can see that when grown-ups attend physical activity, they're not into tournaments or competitions. They're in because they want to be more healthy or because they want to feel like more wellness. And also we can see that the growth has shifted from sports that has special conditions in technical or physical to sports that has no requirements. For example, running or fitness or sports like that. If we at the same time look at some of the mega trends we face in our society, it's evident to everyone that we are surrounded by social media. In one hand, that can be very good for our sports clubs because it means that it might be easier to tell the surroundings about your offers. But on the other hand, it's also challenging because the sports club is no longer one out of few options to be part of a community. It's one out of tons of options to be part of communities, and those communities are open 24/7. Time is a megatrend, or lack of it, or the feeling of lack of it. When we look at numbers of why people don't go to the gym, why they're not physically active, it's only 20% that says it's because of lack of time. No, sorry, it's because it's boring. The rest of them, the 80%, says that it's some sort of lack of time that does that they're not active anymore. Another megatrend is flexibility, and we need the different offers to be exactly developed for us. And we need to take that into account when we talk with our sports clubs. We also need to look at our sports club and talk with them about flexibilities in opening hours. If you want to go to gymnastics, you can. In Denmark, you go there between August and March. But what if you want to start in May? It's difficult today. We have to challenge that. And as I said before, health and wellness is more important than competing and winning. And that's really challenging in a regular sports club, because this about competing, about winning, it's sort of part of our DNA. You showed a great picture before, Henrik, with the church and the pyramid, and I think that's a good picture of where we're going to move. We're moving from the pyramid onto the church because half of the club has to focus on sports that's just for health, wellness for adults. But it's not only challenges. We also have a huge organizational potential. We have 61 sports federations and 14 DGI associations. We have more than 300,000 volunteers. I mean, look at the potential for creating ambassadors that will go out and talk about Move for Life. It's like Facebook in the real world. If you have a friend telling you, well, I thought you could come with me to the sports club, I think you'd rather do that than going to a club that is advertised, because you trust your friend. So we should not forget all these volunteers that can function as our ambassadors. We also have more than 10,000 sports clubs. Compare that to a business that wants to sell things. We have like potentially 10,000 sports shops that can offer you sport. And we have a huge amount of different ways of doing sports. And we have to take that into account. So the next question is, how do we do it? How do we challenge our federations, our many sports clubs? How do we create these ambassadors that are so important, that are so crucial to succeed in this vision? Well, let me say it right away. It's not an easy job. But we're not like any other company who builds a corporate strategy. We're two different organizations with more than 300,000 volunteers. And we have to incorporate that fact in the way we roll out the vision. We choose not to take the easy way, where we just point out, we'll do this, 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 and you can just go and do it, because we know that it won't work. If we want to create all these ambassadors, we're going to take them in. We're going to make them help us find the solutions. And that's what we're doing. It's essential to make sure that the goals, the good ideas, the solutions, and so on comes from the volunteers for those who are going to work with it. It has to be them that finds out how to figure out this very strong task. The process that I've listed here is the process that describes how we work with our 10,000 clubs. But it might as well be the process that describes how we work with our federations and our associations. Because the first thing we do is analyze. We collect all the data that we can on a given sport or on a given organization. And then we sit around a table, and it might sound old school and slow and so on, but it's worth it, because then we give our volunteers, our employees, the chance to come up with the good ideas themselves. Our job at the DIF and the DGI is to keep challenging them. We have to always question what normally works, what can and can't be done, and especially we have to challenge them in where to look for new members. So if they start turning their head against the kids, we have to say, no, it's not where the potential is. Look here. Look here what drives adults and elderly people to be physically active. Do you want to be part of that? And then we follow this process. But the analysis phase is crucial here. That's where we put a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of time and questions to ensure that we do not come up with more of the same and that we challenge ourselves. So, where are we now in this process? We're on our way, we have to say. Things could be moving faster, we know, but we also know that you almost can't be too thorough if you want to get people involved and if you want to build a strong foundation. And that's what we're doing right now. Because we know we have to get all our volunteers, all our federations, all our 14 associations in the DDI active in this vision. Otherwise, we won't succeed. We also have to look at our surroundings. We have to look for new ways to cooperate with others, that sports clubs, with the municipality, with companies, with other federations. At the moment, we don't have any numbers yet. We're very excited about the numbers coming very soon, about how actively the Danes are, and we're in the process with Idan on how to have numbers, data more regularly so we can act into them. Because at the moment, our numbers are, I wouldn't say old, but well, they were a few years ago. Right now we have floorball, we have badminton, running, bicycling and handball on it. And we have football, fitness and gymnastics, tennis, triathlon and shooting to come. We're working on all levels of the society. We have developed this process for our clubs. And in this process, as we do with our federations, as we do with the associations, we challenge them. We ask them what data they base their assumptions on, their goals, and the possibilities they point out. We might also bring them a couple of good ideas, but it's important that the ideas in general come from them, because they are the one who have to carry it out, make it happen. We work with municipalities, and we also work on a government basis. We have ensured that this vision is part of our new governance basis, and I think that's a good way to start. So our motto in this phase is sort of, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. So we keep challenging on ourselves, and the way we challenge ourselves is using data and knowledge as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Anne will also come back in the panel after the next two presentations. So now we take a step up the ladder to the European level with the federation, namely, which is working on sport for all and sports participation, and that is the European Federation for Company Sports. and I have found out they have several vice presidents, and one of them is Guy de Grauwe, who's going to speak here. So please take the floor.
Thank you. That's correct. I'm not the only one. The second one is over there. He's standing up now. He's my helpline today. Okay. During this presentation, I will focus on a few aspects EFCS is exploring and examining at this moment in view of future action plans. But I will also give you a short overview of what EFCS is and does. About me, very quickly, I love football. I practiced quite a lot of activities. I'm in company sports since 1970 years. Yes, I am already so old. I am also an administrator since 1983, former president of Belgian and Flemish Federation, and so on and so on. Not very important. EFCS in a nutshell. We were created in 1962 in Switzerland. And at that time, we counted 8 members. Today, we total 39 member countries, of which 24 are EU member states. EFCS is a voluntary non-profit organization, an expert in the field of company sport, and recognized by the EU institutions. The blue and white collar workers are our target public. Company sport, maybe it's necessary to have a definition about company sport or corporate sport. It means all types of sport activities organized within a company by one or more workers, or by company volunteers, or by external persons, all for the benefit of the workers. The activities are held in the company itself or in external sport facilities. EFCS feels strongly about health and well-being, togetherness, sociableness, equality, diversity, environmental awareness. Our main objectives are to strengthen human and cultural contacts across national borders through sport by offering a wide spectrum of company sport events. We also want to promote regular movement and physical activity in companies, and we emphasize the recreational and health-enhancing character of company sport. And also we try to make active the inactive people at the workflow, which is quite important also. So we count 39 members today. You can see them for yourself, coming from 24 EU member states. Other facts and figures. We count about 70 million athletes, more or less, 150,000 company sport clubs, 41,000 companies. We have about 900 staff in the national federations. We practice 40 sport disciplines, and then we organize also summer company sport games and winter company sport games. Our missions, the organization of sport events for both for active, retired and non-active employees of private and public companies affiliated to EFCS, the promotion of health-enhancing activities in the professional context, the exchange of regular and systematic information on initiatives taken within sports across national borders, the promotion of ethics and fair play values, and the representation of the national company sport federations at the EU level. We have several services. We organize sport events. We have conferences and workshops. We exchange information and best practices. We are a networking platform, so we represent the federations at the EU, and we are also a consultancy body. But a major asset is the summer games. We started with the summer games in 1977 in Eindhoven. This year we were in Italy. In 2017 we go to Ghent, Belgium, and in 2019 to Salzburg, Austria. I put the two events organized by the Danish Federation for Company Sport in red, and particularly the one in Aalborg was in fact the best event held ever in EFCS. And I'm not saying this because the Danish people are here today and we are in Aarhus today, so this is a fact. This is a reality. Pardon?
We hate Aalborg.
We hate?
We hate Aalborg here in Aarhus.
Ah, you hate Aalborg. Okay, okay, okay. Well, I know, is there a football team here in Aarhus?
No.
Fantastic. Well, there's some football team from the region, no? Because they won 1-3 in Bruges a couple of weeks ago. So I hate Aarhus. I hate it. Okay. So that's our major asset, the summer games. We also have our winter games, which are smaller, only winter sports minded people go to these games. But as you can see, we started in 1990 and we already have fixed the place, the host city of 2018 games. Besides our actual sport activities, we also can present new developments in the field of company sports. We are a framework for a social and cultural program, which is quite important. Participants can, and the visitors of course, can learn more about the unique features of the host countries and their inhabitants. And we are also a unique networking platform, given the important numbers of participants at the games and the important number of companies we have in all our federations. During my presentation, I have integrated a few slides, a few quotes in fact, and the first quote is coming from one of the important men when it about sport, when it goes about sport in Europe, Tibor Navracic, who is the European Commissioner for Sport. And during the active European Sports of Week in September, he said that regular physical activity brings the employee better life quality, well-being and health. It's a win-win situation. So EFCS's core business is organizing and stimulating company sport activities, but this doesn't mean that EFCS doesn't pay attention to other aspects. On the contrary, the health aspect is important. The gender equality and diversity aspects are of the utmost importance. That is why EFCS in its role allows or optimizes its role as body to as a, let's say, socially responsible company sport actor. That's better, a better way to say it. And in order to give priority to equality of opportunity and accessibility. EFCS allows everyone's sports talents and knowledge to be valued and to make sure that everyone is respected. In other words, every company sporter, male or female, should be given the possibility to participate in our events. That is why EFCS has created the Gender Equality, Balance and Diversity Committee. Its goals are to fight against inequality between men and women in sport, to accept the new position of women today, and to integrate these values in our society. Quite a big challenge. This committee has just recently created a new award, which will be awarded next year during the General Assembly in 2016, and that trophy will be the the recognition, in fact, for the gender equality innovative efforts. The objective, in fact, is to increase the proportion of women in sport events in our executive boards and to promote better gender balance. Another highly rated committee in EFCS is the EFCS Health Committee, which is permanently and very closely monitoring the latest trends and evolutions in health-enhancing physical activity. Amongst them, the sitting behavior. Today the slogan, "Sitting kills," is a reality. In the changing working environment, new furniture enables physical activity when working. The sitting breaking activities are built in the daily working routines, and sitting a whole day long without physical activity is no proper behavior anymore. Second quote comes from a female worker. Having 5 small kids, it's wonderful that the daily exercise is already done when I get home from work. Correct. So besides representing EFCS and its members at the EU level, EFCS brings in its expertise and network and concretely contributes to reaching the European objectives corresponding to its missions. EFCS adheres to the chapter dedicated to sport in the new Erasmus for All program. And EFCS also supports the Council's recommendation on promoting health-enhancing physical activity. This year, EFCS was official partner of the European Commission's Be Active campaign, more precisely the first ever edition of the European Week of Sport. 14 EFCS member countries have participated, amongst them Denmark, that's through the Danish Company Sport Federation. As I said, one of our most appreciated member associations. And again, I am not saying this because I'm here in Denmark today, organized several high-profile events. EFCS 2014 and 2015 was also closely involved in the Healthy Workplaces campaign. Let me remind you that the Healthy Workplace is a workplace where workers and managers collaborate to use a continual improvement process to protect and to promote the health, safety and well-being of all workers and the sustainability of the workplace. EFCS also participated in EU expert groups such as the HEBA expert group, and EFCS introduced the Active Workplace, Healthy Workplace project, which was co-financed by the European Commission. Why is company sport so important, in fact? Well, it's a good question that merits an equally good answer, and I think the following figures and data provide this answer. 59%, this is the Eurobarometer of 2013, 59% of European Union citizens never or seldom exercise or play sport. Only 30% of them do it in a professional context. Important also is by investing 430 euros per employee for promotion of physical activity programs within the workplace, benefit related to the reduction of absenteeism is 635 euros. And then the performance of an employee who is engaged in regular physical activity can be improved from 4 to 15%, figures from 2003. But I think these are still valid. Yes, over the centuries, man has experienced quite some changes in his work conditions and also in society, and that makes you think. This sedentary lifestyle can lead to some, not to ignore, health risks. And since life expectancy of men and women is getting better all the time, and workers in Europe have to work longer, which means that they must stay healthier longer, movement and physical activity at the work floor are becoming extremely important and can also help us coping with the daily burden and with our inactive and stressful behavior. I'm convinced that all of you know the benefits of company sports and physical activity and movement at the work floor. However, I have chosen to put some benefits, some assets next to each other, as well for the worker as for the company. So this is a real win-win situation. Okay, to the next quote then. And this comes from a Danish worker. Actually, someone from the AXA company, which was mentioned this morning. So in the morning when I go to the office, it's dark, and when I return home in the evening, same. That's why it is so great to go out in the middle of the day. Then some advices about physical activity at the workplace. Do exercise during working hours. I think I am aware that this is not so easy to realize, I suppose. But however, having said that, by doing so, you eliminate, in fact, all the excuses for not getting the daily exercise done. The physical activity has to be open for everyone. You absolutely not force the employees. Free choice works and motivates. If possible, do it as a team, and that will, otherwise it will weaken the team building. And if possible, exercise every day. Good daily habit is the driver that keeps the ball rolling. Well, all what I have said until now can be resumed in a few keywords. Physical activity and movement, keywords which are of importance for EFCS. Recreational aspect, health, gender equality and diversity, company workers, which are our focus group, European company sports games, which are our main asset, good practices, networking, and absolutely, and not the least, fun. If I have some time left, small time, 10 minutes?
No.
Joking, just joking. Well, this is a small, good practice. In fact, some of you might have heard about it or not. This is a small Belgian company, in fact. And this small Belgian company organizes traineeships for talented young graduates with leadership qualities. The Orbit approach is remarkable because one of the key elements in their training program is the promotion of physical activity in the company. So they, young graduates learn that company sport can help in connecting managers and employees. And the result of that training program is that they get convinced that company sport can contribute to a better work relation between all parties. And they introduce the idea of company sport and activity in the companies where they have their education and in their future working environment. So when they become managers, they are indoctrinated, if I may say so, by the idea that company sport and physical activity is necessary in the company. Another quote from one of my colleagues who took up running a couple of years ago. Now she will take part in the Brussels Marathon. It started all at the company itself, so start to run, we call it in Belgium. So if you want some more detailed information, here are some contacts. The President, our Secretary General, myself, or more locally, Peter Wiesgaard and Jan Steffensen, who are here today, so they can talk about company sports in EFCS and in Denmark in general. A last message to the management interesting. I think the way people work together and use their talents determines the strength of the organization and its ability to adapt to the ever-changing environment. Company sport and activities and physical activities can play a big role in that. And the last slide, or the penultimate slide, we also have a World Federation now since recently. Okay, not a big deal for the moment, we just started. But okay, company sport is a global aspect, a global thing, so we shouldn't stick to Europe and we go worldwide. So, go for it, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. And you will also be here after the last speaker of this session. Now we have had the National Federation, and we have had the European Federation, and now we have a platform which is the newest among us, which is a national platform for street sport that is not government funded or to a very limited degree, but has still had some success. So, Sis Bondo, will you share your story with us?
I chose not to have a PowerPoint, and that was probably a mistake, but hopefully we'll get some slides up. Okay. Hi, my name is Sus, and I'm from the National Danish Platform for Street Sport, or we just call it Gadeidræt in Denmark. I was asked to talk a bit about how the street sport or our platform is challenging the established sports in Denmark. I'd like to start to say that I think it's the youth and the street sport who is challenging the established sports more than we maybe is, but we are representing a lot of these people, so it's not all wrong. Just to go through a bit what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk a bit about what street sport is, changing needs, which we've been talking about all day, I think. A bit about how active the youth and the children are, trends and tendency, who we are, and how to formally support informal structure, and what the street sport is challenging in the future. So, to start with, what is street sports? Cohen said, hey, I played soccer all the time in the streets, so I guess there's nothing new about street sports, and that was what everybody a few generations older than me say. Hey, there's nothing new about street sport. Maybe it's just the iPad that came away from the street sport not being a part of the everyday life. But some of you also said, okay, this is what we know. Street sport is skateboard, core, basket, all of these more urban sports. I am not here to set the final definition of what street sport is, because one thing it is, it's proactive, and 6 months ago I didn't know what a steer wheel was, which is a big iron wheel that people are doing crazy things in. So it's always exploring new things, and I would guess if we meet up a year from now, I would have double as many kinds of street sport. But street sport is way more than basket and skateboard. It's often self-organized, it's flexible, as we've been talking about all day. It's informal, it's free, and when I say free, it's not all about cost. It's also the accessibility, that it's free to come and use a local skate park or a basket field. It's innovative because there's not a set of rules in all of these genre of street sports. Of course, you have to agree on a set of rules if you're playing a basket match, but it may not be the same as you played the day before. It's creative because it kind of demands the youth to think how they want to do this street sport. If they want to try out parkour, it doesn't have a set of rules, so they have to be creative. And last but not least, it's social. One thing that we know from the established sports as well. I could almost stop my presentation here because this list is pretty much how it's challenging the established sports. It's because it's self-organized, it's because it's flexible combined with the social factor. It's because it's innovative and creative that it challenges the way that most established sports looks as a way to structure sports. I'm so glad that Anne just said that they're trying to analyze how they can meet these changes way more. So maybe I can say that this is challenging enough because the established sports is looking into this. But yeah, we've been talking about the changing needs or the trends in especially the youth in sports. So I'll try to make this fast so I'm not saying the exact same thing as everybody else. But there's nothing new about that. The need is changing. We've seen that, or we'd rather be talking music or we talking sports or whatever we can look at. But I also think it's a lot to do with the society that we live in. The established sports, as we know it now, was built in a society of industrial, where we had a certain working hour, we tapped in and out, we had a set of rules. And our society now is way more built on network and knowledge, service. It created some other needs for the youth, that they're pushing the established sports to be a bit more open-minded and inclusive, I would say. So whenever these needs changes, I would like to ask myself and the rest of street sports, but also the established sports, what are you doing to meet the changes of the needs for the youth? Who knows the best what the youth want, and how do you engage the youth in the process? And last but not least, are we creating more sports for the sporty, or are we doing activity for the inactive? One thing that we see is that the municipalities actually are trying to reach out to the youth and meet some of the needs. And one thing that's, of course, a big deal for me is through street sports facilities. So there is a movement of trying to reach out to youth and the needs. Yeah, and how active are they? I think we've seen a lot of numbers today already, both Danish, Swedish, and European numbers. I have a few with me as well. We have a lot of young people engaged in clubs and activities, but only 30% of the Danish children are physical active. The seven hours a week that WHO is recommended. If we look at the numbers from all over Europe, as we saw earlier in the time bomb new measurement, it's only 20% of the children that's active in the after the recommendation. Maya earlier today talked about the dropouts in the teenage years, and that's I think it was back in 2007 or something that Idan as well measured on that, and that was a quarter of the Danish teens who dropped out of sports while getting in the teenage years. So Not to say the least, we have a potential to make some supplement to the already existing established sport to get some more hours of activities. This is some numbers that's fairly old as well, but as well said, we are looking forward to the new numbers here in the beginning of the activities. We see that back in 2007 as well, we saw that as soon as children went into the teens, they dropped out of the more club-related or associated sports and towards the self-organized sports. And it increases even more as later in the teens. So one of the things that street sport has is that it's self-organized, but there's a lot of other self-organized, because we have been talking about trends and tendencies all day long, and I will just go through the three first, because I think we'll be talking about that a lot today. We see a mega trend that sports are moving out on the streets, not just being the regular sports in sports halls or indoor facilities, but it's not all street sports, of course, I know that. But in Denmark, the last analysis we had was in 2011, showed that 27% of Danish kids and youth were actually active through street sports. And here we're talking about rollerblades and skateboards, parkour, and all these together, so it's not one sport that hits that high number. This year we asked, I think it was the 35 biggest municipalities in Denmark about the street sports and the relationship to it. And one of the numbers that came out was that 38% of Danes, that's 18 and above, were active through self-organized sports. And that's when we're talking about the parents' influence. I would say, I don't think they are on a skateboard, 38%. Of course they're not, but that's probably fitness and running. And from my point of view, the self-organized sports will relate a lot to the new modern family. They're looking for a flexible alternative. An hour in the gym or the fitness center is so easy to fit in the daily schedule, and the running through the park is also easy to fit in. But is that what we want to show our children? Because we heard earlier today that club sport was not, it was child-related or whatever. It was in Sweden, I think, that the youth was saying, like, when you're adult, you don't go to clubs. I think that's wrong, but of course it reflects when mom and dad are going to the fitness center all the time. That's what you associate with an activity. I think we can see a lot of copying in that, but iron in the gym, and that's just not very social. It's not very creative. It's not all of these values that I just pointed out earlier. And that's why I think that street sport has, or can be a tool to create a bit more activity. So where do we come in as a platform? We quoted a guy called Thomas, Nigel Thomas, sorry, it goes by Thomas, who's a skateboarder from Svendborg at Pøhl. And he was saying that in Denmark we have a lot of enthusiasts within the street sports scene, all with a lot of good ideas, but they need some guidance and support of an organization that knows the system to make their ideas and thought into a reality. And that, I think that pointed out for a lot of street sport initiative that we need to kind of go together and learn from each other, but also have some that kid guidance in the system, as he said. That resulted in what we now call the Danish Platform for Street Sports. We are only officially 10 months old, but it all started, today we are a little over 50 street sport initiative in Denmark. It started a few years back with, I think it was 30 street sports initiative who sat together and talked about how can we somehow be an organization or be an umbrella organization, something that make us have a bigger voice together. It ended up being a platform because we don't have to demand to be an organization. That's why we're not a federation or anything like that. But today it's over 50 street sports initiative. We are one secretariat, which is me and 2 others. We are funded by Nordea Fonden, which means that for now we have a deadline on 3 years. Nordea Fonden gave us 2 million euros and 3 years. That was a result of us trying to be that supplement to the established sports in a governmental state, as we talked about. Should there be more different options for the government to choose and support? That didn't happen, but Nordea Fonden went in and said, we want to invest and fund 2 million euros and 3 years, so you can show what potential the street sport has. Just to basic game, which is one of the biggest street sports NGOs in Denmark, and a board is hosting the platform for street sports. So these 4 things together created the platform 10 months back. And what do we do? Our method is a three-legged chair. And the first leg is distribution of funds. Within the 2 million euros that Nordea Fund gave us, we are giving the most away. We are giving funds to organization or the initiative that I was talking about. Initiatives that facilitating street sports. And that can be everything from facilitating street sports in a municipality to creating a new education for instructor within street sports. Second method we have is knowledge sharing. We are talking about documentation and analysis and everything today. There's not that much of documentation on street sport yet. So we try to collect and make a lot of analysis and documentation on street sports so we can fit in the system that as we know it now. And last but not least, we are using a lot of time on consulting, which is in many ways because we are consulting a lot of municipalities who want to implement street sports in their local area where they don't know how to talk to the youth, or the other way around. A young guy comes to us and say, I have this amazing idea, but I have no clue how to get to the municipality or who I'm going to talk to. One example of that was 6 weeks back, a guy, 19 years old, I think it was, Frederick, came to me and asked if we would help him reach out to the municipality. And I was like, yeah, but have you done anything yet? He had sent 13 emails or something. I was actually not half bad the email he sent, because I've talked to him, so I knew the whole project. But when I saw which email he sent it from, it was something like, Frederick Pigstark, 9085, go shoot yourself, whatever. And it was probably super funny when you are 19 years old, but I would guess that a lot of people at the municipality wouldn't even open that email because it just was too ridiculous. I sat down with him and we kind of structured what you need to do to reach out to the municipalities. And 2 weeks later we met up with the municipality at the scene where he wanted to build, and there's a snowboard jump just behind an ice hole, because whenever they clean out the ice hole, they have this perfect snow left, and he could rebuild the snow to a snowboard jump apparently. So we went and had the meeting, and as soon as he got the help, he got the permit to have the place for the next 2 years without any questions almost. So that's lead me to the next, because this is maybe the most asked question. It is how to formalize support with all these informal structures and all these unorganized people. None of the people we work with are unorganized. They're just organized in another way. And we're trying to make our support fit that purpose. As I said, we are officially 10 months old. We didn't have time to analyze and document and test and evaluate and on and on and on. So we started out and we are doing it as we go along. We are reaching out for dialogue with different partners within municipalities, other street sports organizations or initiatives, but also strategic partners, because we need to be just as proactive as the scene that we're representing, which means that we can't just sit around and wait for people to find us. Next thing is that we live by the rule that we're supporting, not controlling. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to fit these crooked ones into our system. We believe that the youth, or it can also be grown-ups who has these projects, that the people have the projects, and we're just here to support them in the right direction to make this into a reality. We don't demand that they have some kind of, or some certain form of organization, which leads to the next point, diversity of organization. We had a huge difficulty with finding out how to give out funds to people who wasn't organized as the system knows it. But then we decided to rather fit our system so that we could have the diversity, because if we are setting barriers, we're not getting all the good ideas in. And it leads to the next. One of the most important things for us is to look at the empowerment of the youth. We are supporting the youth and giving them the tools to realize, to make these projects into reality. And that's also why we don't fund projects who hasn't talked to the youth about what they want. There's so many cases in Denmark where a municipality has spent million of kronas on building new facilities for street sport, because that's the trend. And a year after they finish the project, they're saying, why nobody using these facilities? That's because they didn't have the dialogue with the youth, the local youth, or then they build a parkour facility, but they really want to play basket. So trying to implement the youth in the process as well. Going back to the changing of needs. Who knows what the youth want the most and need the most? The youth. I don't know it, but I can get the municipalities and the youth together and talk about it. I'll run through the last one rather quickly. One thing as well, not to create barriers for people to go into these projects, is basically we created a simple application process. You don't have to be an academic to apply for funds at our platform, which many of you, if you've been working with fundraising, you almost need to have a PhD or a master degree to reach the level that the funds are demanding. So we're trying to create a simple process so we get all the crazy ideas in as well, because they're often the best. Which also goes to that we're not spending tons of money at my desk. We're putting him out on the streets where the actual facilitating is going on. For all this to work, we need to learn from each other. That's why we are every day trying to work towards a community. As I said before, we don't have all the data, we don't have all the documentation. We need to learn from each other, and that's a new thing in street sports because it's so many different communities that has to share now. One of the last thing how to navigate in all this is accessibility, and that has a lot of sides. We need to be easy to access for the young guy, Henrik, so he actually get in touch with the municipality. We need to reflect the accessibility that street sport is out in the streets. And that's important for us to remember all the time, that accessibility is one of the most important things in street sports. What do street sport challenge? I was trying to make a list, and when I wrote them all up, it was 29 points or something. So I guess you didn't want to hear all the challenges there is. I chose 3 that I think is some of the most challenging points for moving forward. And that is top of the list, cooperation with the established sports. How do we engage with the established sports? Because there's no doubt about it, they're doing a great job getting children, youth, grown-ups, others active. But we see a change, and we see a tendency to that the established sports want to cover everything, and we believe in the expert. The expert is the young people who are doing street sport. How do we get these 2 partners to work together towards more activities all over? The new form of organization, we've been talking about it earlier today as well. People are not, or young people are not building the same organization as we've been used to. They're not creating clubs with the board members. They're having a Facebook group, or they are having some new social media that we don't know about yet. But they are creating their communities in way different ways. And how do we cope with that in the established sports or in a platform as we are? How do we adapt our system to all these new forms of organization? Or do we do? Because couldn't we just demand that if any of these creative young people want to have some support, they just have to fit into the system as we know it? That's one challenge. And the last, but the most important challenge, I would say, is how can we move from changing projects into changing the infrastructure? And that is potentially being a sideline product to the established sports as we know it now, also with governmental funding. We are moving small projects now. We are seeing results from countrysides to bigger cities. We are seeing more and more facilities being created all around the country. But when our 3 years are up and our 2 million euros are spent, how do we go forward with the potential tool as street sports to get people active? That was not that long, or was it? I have one more slide, and that's just an example of one of the projects we supported. It's 1 minute, so it's really quick. But it's how to engage from children to youth in the process of creating a new facility, which is in Esbjerg. Okay, we don't have sound, but you can maybe see it here. there's always a job, even though you are 5 years old. And that was just an example of a big street sports facility which is open in January, where the project manager invited local kids to help out finishing the facility. Yeah. That was almost good.
Please come up to the panel. Yes. We heard a lot about changing patterns. We did a survey, and we do a lot of surveys in municipalities and among the school children. And we can see this very rapid change from when they go in the 7th, 8th class, they all go to the clubs, and then 9th, 10th, they end up in that fitness center on that square. Almost everybody in this small municipality, and they write why they do it, and they say because we can do what we want. It's as simple as that, and they can do what they want. So there is not an ideology in it or anything. They just say that's the reason why they prefer to be there. And it's a little bit probably the same with street sport. And I have the same now with my son. He's 13. He plays football, but the other day he suddenly started boiling eggs. I said, hey, you never did cook before. No, but he had been reading about proteins. Oh, that was in eggs, and he also wanted to buy some protein drinks. I said, no, don't do that. Do you know your father is the director of Play the Game? I know all the doping groups. I can easily get you some steroids. But, so here we are, and I'd like to start to take the first question for the data hub people. When you look at your data, because I understood from your presentation, you know quite a lot of what is going on in the leisure. And also, of course, you work with the governing bodies, but when you look who actually deliver, who actually make things happen in the leisure centers, how would you make that split? Who are the biggest providers? Is it the local sports clubs? Is it the leisure center? Or is it someone else? What is it? How would you give the split in the various?
Good question. I think over in the UK, there's a balance. A lot of it is from governing bodies. So you'll have accredited swim lessons, you'll have Badminton England, those kind of federations coming in, running activities. You'll have other organisations like Street Games and those guys that are linked into the facilities. I think what we're doing is we're also, I mean, the focus of the presentation was around governing bodies, but there's also this commercial sector. So there's franchises like Boxercise and Zumba that we can start to open up that intelligence and provide that kind of information to them as well. I think that's something I really want to emphasise with what we're doing there. It's an open source system. We want as many people coming in and using that intelligence and taking it out, improving the products and services they deliver. Because there is a growing commercial sector. We've all spoken about a growing number of individual sports going on. That is still physically active. That's still contributing social and economic returns. So the more open, the more people we provide that intelligence to, the better. I think.
So what do you think is the trend? If we put it up as we are at the game, so we like to as a battle, do you see which direction is it going? Is it the
traditional sports are definitely declining?
They are.
Yeah, we've seen in all the sessions today. There's more specialist sports coming in, more specialist activities. But I think there needs to be a recognition that I touched on it earlier, that a badminton player isn't just a badminton player. A person will often go to a Pilates lesson once a month. Go to the gym, spend a £5 on swimming, and maybe take a can of Coke. That person to you as the facility owner, as the municipality, is worth this much, not just the value you get from the badminton player. So it's important to consider that when you're profiling what programs to put in place and what facilities to do.
And if we then look at street sport and DIF, because Annie, you can fit that into your structure. Today they want to play basketball, tomorrow they want to do something else. What about your structure?
I think we'll be able to fit that into our structure in the future, but we're in the middle of a turnaround where we're working with our clubs, we're asking them how to solve these new demands, these new needs. So yes, we are aware that at the moment we're not everywhere able to meet these needs. But we're working on it, and we are very focused on, changing things in our sports clubs.
That's also why I invited the Street Sports Federation into cooperation with the division and in general. So we're hoping to see them.
What can they offer you, sis? Money, or can they offer you something else that you want more?
Oh, money. No, I think the important is to look at who are the real expert in the different things. Street sport is one thing, but that's just a small tool in the bigger picture. I think that the established sports, as Idan have to look at the sports on demand kind of thing. The youth are shopping around. They are not they're not married to any club as they were before. So what different DE probably could offer us is a dialogue. How can we learn from each other, and how can we reflect on these things together? Because I think we are having some knowledge that they don't have, but it's the other way around as well.
And then an opening question for you, Guy. You showed us a federation that is works like most traditional federation. You sort of the umbrella of it. But if you look at the company sport and that sector, there are lots of providers that provide health and sports programs to companies. Are you really necessary, or where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? Will you? Are you, because you call yourself the European company sports federations, but there are, in fact, in a way, also from what we've seen today, there might be lots of those. What is your?
Well, the company sport federation. Okay, we are the official one. That's correct. We are the only one, but there are competitors, of course, and we are aware of that. And it's up to us to come up to those challenges, and that's why we don't stick only to purely company sports. Health aspects, gender, all those things are very important to us also. And okay, it's up to us to work hard. And I have an example from Belgium, for example, and the guys from Denmark, they know it very well. And the company was mentioned this morning, Bondo. It's a commercial company, and they have really know-how. They have top athletes, elite athletes who are working for them, who are in all kinds of aspects, and they organize all kinds of big events in Belgium, amateur events, but also professional events. They organize marathons, they organize cycle events, all kinds of events. They organize Belgian Championship track and field, and they have a couple of years ago they wanted to organize the European company sport games. So things we are doing, and they had an agreement with the city of Antwerp to organize it every year. They paid, the city of Antwerp paid quite a lot of money for that, and in September, a couple of years ago, they decided not to organize it because they had difficulties into getting companies getting involved. They had not the network we have, in fact, in EFCS, and maybe that's something, a challenge for us also. We have to develop our network. We have to maybe increase our services towards our companies. I say maybe we should. I think we should increase our services to our national federations, and still be aware of the competitors that are around. And if we don't do it, well, maybe in 10 years' time we will not exist anymore. So.
Okay, so you are aware of the challenges. I will now open for questions, comments, thoughts? No? Sven?
One of the previous Idan Forum events was one guy, and I can't remember who it was, that said, will the sports club be replaced by an app? How will a governing body of sport respond to certainly having 125,000 apps who you have to look after? Because do we think that, if you look at another part of the world where we see sports clubs doing, give me an example, England, 10 years ago there were 7,000 cricket clubs, now there are 5,500. How do we respond system structures, what structure? And how are you going to cope with that? Because you've got your wonderful vision for all that stuff. I haven't got a clue what the world looks like next week. He wants to look like next 10 years. I mean, how are you going to do that? I think that's a massive challenge for structures, organizations, because we don't know it.
I think it's for you, Idan.
You're right, we don't know what the future will look like. And that means that we have to embrace what is coming. I don't see apps or communities or small societies as a threat. We're together in this vision. As I said from the beginning, our vision has two levels. It has a level saying we want more people in our sports clubs, but we also, in general, want more people to be physically active. And we're fully aware that we can't do that on our own. We have to cooperate with the street platform. We have to look into what the techniques and technology and other stuff that might be invented, how that can help us. So for us, it's not a threat. It's something that will help us towards our goal. But we have to be better than we've been before to embrace that.
So does that mean you're going to take these kind of app providers or street sport providers, or are you going to take them into your membership structure?
I'm not sure that these app providers would share their earns with us, so no, we're not taking them in. But that doesn't mean we can't cooperate.
Will you
We
share?
have to see the difference between a federation that is based on democracy and clubs and a business that is there to earn money. And that's what the main part of those apps are. And that's fine with us. They can earn as much money as they will.
But that is a question, because we have talked about governance and the representation of the various stakeholders. And is it democracy if all the other stakeholders are not represented in any structures or in any government strategy? That is a question for the whole panel.
I think there's probably an example that ties your question and Sven's together. So, in England, Sport England fund the federations from lottery funding, and it's £450 million every 3 years is available, and they were put in a 3-year whole sport plan to say how they're going to deliver that sport. What you're finding now is Sport England have set very clear participation targets to those federations, and if they don't hit them, they threaten to take the money away and give it to alternative providers. And it's the first time, I think last year, I saw that happen. So England basketball is a prime example. They didn't hit their funding, and that was then given to an alternative provider in London who delivers midnight basketball. It's a completely different version of the game. It's not linked to the governing body, but they have some really good success in attracting young ethnic minority groups into the sport. And it's got the cultural element around it, it's got the loud music around it, it's got the clothing around it. And it's a different package to what the governing body provide. And so, certainly in England, we're starting to see that change in delivery. And they call it their mixed economy model. And with the strategy that's currently being consulted, which I know we mentioned earlier on today, I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that approach going forward.
Anyone else who wants to comment? Sis?
Just shortly. I think we can ask ourselves if it's democracy, but I think, as Johan just said earlier today, the system and the tradition about how to fund the established sports or the government body is just so conservative that I don't see it coming tomorrow. I think my point of view is that I'm afraid that we need to, an organization like ours, we need to fit into the system to get reckoned by the politicians. And that's also a question of democracy. We have a system where we have done the same thing over and over again. I'm glad to hear that there's some development here, but it's all about how we always been doing things, and time changes, but it's hard to change the whole system.
Okay. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I think obviously there is democracy, but I also think that you have to look at the data. How many physically active people do these organizations represent? I think that's an important question in this debate too. We talk about money, where the money.
So that's why I asked the data of people who is actually delivering.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They work differently
Yeah.
in the UK. And it's a very interesting way of looking on how you spend the money. And in the DIF, we're at this very moment in the process where we're changing the way we're delivering the money to the federations in order to see that they are working for our common goals.
We have these businessmen here. They just came over here to hire some clients, and I found one following that is Guy, who's there with this federation. Can you help him in getting more people into his federation? What would you do if he was to? He says he wants to increase the service to his membership federation. What would you do?
I'm here tomorrow also.
It's all the companies in Europe. He has all the companies in Europe. It's a good client base to have, actually.
It's an interesting one. I think we also work with a number of federations, and it's not just about data and taking it from facilities. We have a number of kind of leadership and training modules that look at who's right to deliver what kind of programs in what kind of areas, and making sure you've got the right person in the right place. And then, but because you've got the facility data as well, and this is where it all starts to tie together, you can see who's delivering the most effective outcomes as well. And you've also got the customer surveying data coming in as well, so you've almost got a TripAdvisor system within the sports sector. And it goes back to this idea of this kind of continuous improvement. Keep trying kind of different initiatives, but have a mechanism in place that really captures the outcomes of that data and make sure you're sharing that best practice as effectively across your organisations as possible. So going back to apps and whether apps are going to solve the world, we have a number of apps that are used by workforce across different governing bodies to disseminate that information, to bring them together in insight forums, to look at who's performing well, who's not, and why, and the support they're being provided by the Federation and government, and whether that's driving more success actually on the ground in terms of participation and profit being delivered within facilities. So I don't think we're too far apart in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. No. Okay. So, sorry. Here. We start here.
Yes, my name is Peter Biskop. I'm the president of the Danish Federation for Company Sport and vice president.
Don't start an argument now.
No, I just ask Guy for something. No, of course I won't. I will ask Søs about a little bit. You, as far as I remember, you told us about that all your members, or what you call them, they are unregistered or they are informal, but they are formal in a way by themselves in a way. When I'm visiting a game, I do it a couple of times a year, I have never seen such a organized place. I say the young people who come there, they are registered when they come, they pay for to do it, and they are only allowed to play basket there and other things there. Don't you think that you, in a couple of years, are just like us?
That's a good question.
And would you blame her if she became like you?
No.
It's development.
Development. For you who doesn't know what GAME is, it's the NGO that I was talking about, and I'm sure you've been visiting one of the indoor facilities that they have, and that's true. That's very organized, and it's also built up that clubs, if we can call that foreninger, as it's called in Denmark, have their trainings in that house. And that's one way to look at that some street sports are actually copying or fitting in the structure as we see it now. But we also see it the other way around, that we now have a federation for street handball, which is started in Fredericia, where we took the traditional handball out in the streets instead of in the halls. So I don't think that we can say, are we moving towards one thing or one structure? I think it goes both ways, and I would definitely not predict the future of the organization, because I think we will see 20 new forms of organization in the time to come. I think it follows the development in social media. It develops in how we look at society. So I don't think that we as an organization, it's important for me to say, game is a part of the board, but we as the platform for street sports are working on our own. We are not trying to be a federation that demands one kind of structure to fit in, definitely not. If that happens, I'm not in the job anymore, because that's one of the most important things for me, is that we can support these projects because we are not demanding them to change. We are more empower them to get the most out of the projects that they have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have time for the last short question, and the answer must be short as well, because we have to close the session. So next speak.
I'll be quick. Actually, my question has twofold. When Apple released the Apple Watch, they also tied with it the Health app. And the interesting thing with the Health app is that it doesn't only integrate the data from the watch, but it integrates almost all of the Health app that you have in the market. So what they also did is they made that information available to a bunch of research centers in the US. So the question I have is, one is whether you have access to that, and then if you don't or have, how do you think that information will help you basically better frame solutions, or better frame problems, or even policy changes and all of that?
So question for you?
Yeah, really interesting. When I say it's kind of an open system that we run it on behalf of the sector group. It's open on two sides. One side is about partners who can use the business intelligence to feed into their current modules, like the social return on investment, the marketing, the surveying. But on the other side, yes, we're open to new data sources coming in. We're not engaged with Apple at the moment, but there's a number of other apps. I mentioned MapMyFitness, which have 5 billion users in the UK. There's another really cool, interesting company called Bounce, who reward people for doing physical activity, and they use geotagging to track where you're doing that activity. We're talking with them about feeding that data into our system to, again, better profile people, understand the risks, understand the benefits of physical activity. And the final point is, it's related to our work with Sheffield Hallam, but we're looking for other partners continuously as well. We're sat on this huge amount of data. It's only valuable if we can open it up to the right partners. So we are very keen for educational institutes to come forward and work with us on how we develop conclusions from it.
I think the last point to add to that is, because of smartphones and the data it's capturing us, and the health app's a perfect example, it's changing the position, especially from a public health point of view. So you're going from going to the doctor saying, I think I'm ill, tell me what's wrong with me, to a point where your phone tells you you're unfit and unhealthy, and this is the reason why, and you're self-prescribing and then able to go to a doctor, but almost prescribe your own course of activity, whether it's, I need to go running, where's my local running club, or it's down the road. So it's very much changing the dynamic of how sport and health is being prescribed. So
I need to go running. Where can I find somebody to do it for me? Maybe. Thank you very much for attending this forum. Tomorrow we will talk about all the outdoor trends and how to integrate it into the urban structure and development. So I think it will be interesting tomorrow, and I thank you for coming, and of course I thank the panelists. Thank you.